welcome to our Wednesday webinar series. I believe this is number 11 now. This is the 11th session we've done. And the topic today is a virtual evidence room tour of the El Mirage Police Department in El Mirage, Arizona. And we have Jason Michael here with us. Hello, Jason.
How you doing, sir?
Good, good. So first of all, thank you very much for being here. I would like to throw out just generally to everybody that is watching, people love to participate and watch these things. They always, you know, how's everybody else doing it? They want to see what's going on at other departments, but very few people want to participate and do one of these. And so we've been picking clients of ours, people that I mean, I think I may have sort of armstrung you into this, Jason. I don't know that you had a lot of choice about doing this. I think I texted you and said, Jason, you're in for next Wednesday. You're in.
Exactly. That's all right, though. It's good to go. I'm enjoying it. I love my job, so.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate you being on here, and we've got other people that are willing to do it. But if there's anybody watching, I don't want to just pick cracker clients or people that we know, you know, very well. We're happy to do virtual evidence room tours of other situations out there. I mean, these things are so unbelievably important for everybody to see what other people are doing. It is the one thing when we do conferences, when we do even these webinars, people flock to and show up for watching what other people are doing. They just do it because generally most people don't know what's going on out there in the world. This is the first time something like this has ever been done, where we're taking you into an evidence room, we're letting you talk to evidence techs and get the real world feedback. So if there's anybody watching that you're even halfway potentially interested in doing something like this, please let me know. Just actually put something in the chat window. I've got Max from our office keeping an eye on these things, and he'll keep your name down. But please let us know if you're interested in doing one. Listen, they're easy. I keep them easy. I'm not going to ask you any difficult questions. The hardest thing you'll have is what Jason will agree is get it set up and just making sure that the video is working. Outside of that, it's going to be very, very simple. All right. One other note before we get started, I just want to point out to everybody the Facebook community group. And so let me bring this up on the screen. I'm going to put in the chat window the URL to the community group. It is now posted in there. Make sure if you're not a member of this group, make sure you go in. We're up to almost 350 members. That is 350 property techs all across the country that you now have immediate and direct access to. If you have questions, thoughts, post pictures. We had a really, really cool comment this week where somebody asked a question about RFID, and many of you may not even know what RFID is. I'm actually in the process right now of trying to track down a department that is using RFID so that they can come back on here and we're going to try to show off an evidence room that's using RFID. So I don't know if anybody is on here that is using RFID in your evidence room, please identify yourself. We would love to have a conversation with you about RFID and how it's working in your evidence room. But then ultimately what we want to do is put it out on a webinar. We want to give other people a chance to look and see what that technology is, how it works, what you like, don't like. And so anyways, those are my two bit of lead-ins for today. Let's get the ball rolling. So Jason Michael, you and I have known each other for a couple of years now. Give me just let's go back in how long have you been an evidence tech at El Mirage?
A little over 12 years now. So I started out basically researching and finding how other departments do this. I walked into it blind, and here I am 12 years later. I'm still learning the process.
How did you get into the evidence room? I'm just curious. Did somebody come to you and ask you to do it? Did you notice a job posting? How did you wind up in the evidence room?
It was just a warehouse posting that I saw on a website. I was getting discharged from the military, and I figured I might as well keep on doing what I do best, and that's warehousing experience. So I found it, and I was able to get the position.
Okay. So you're civilian, correct?
Correct, yes.
Okay, excellent. So let's jump into what you just said right there, because I want you to get into your military, because you weren't just in the military, but you were. Why don't you give us a quick rundown on what you were doing with the military, because that you just said you had some specific background on that. Give us your overview of what your military life was like.
So I had several positions in the military. My main one was I was a heavy equipment operator, transport operator. But then on the other side of the house, I worked as a federal agent for the state as their ammunition supply manager. So I had a dual role. So on weekends I was playing with the Tonka toys, and then during the weekdays I was the ammunition supply manager.
Excellent, excellent. And how many? You said how many years were you in the military?
15.
Wow. Okay. Excellent. And so, I mean, so you were essentially, you were moving equipment all over the world then. I mean, would you describe that as being more difficult than running an evidence room, or is it less difficult?
It had its challenges, but I'll take this any day.
Okay. Yeah, there's something about working. Go ahead.
I'm inside.
Well, when it's 107 degrees outside, I can understand that. So, all right. So you saw a posting for, you didn't particularly know it was evidence. You just saw it was warehousing. I mean, what was the lead into that?
That was a learning experience because I didn't realize there were so many rules and regulations, state and federal laws, city laws, as far as what I could do with the property, how it needed to be stored, how long I had to store it. So over the course of the first couple of years, I went to all these training courses, and Arizona has a really good association where all the small agencies or all the agencies get together and they have quarterly meetings, and then they have a 2-day conference up in the high mountains, and we all talk about what's going on, what's trending, and so it worked out really well.
So I'm curious, when you walked into El Mirage, so go back 12 years ago, you get this job. I mean, you're probably all excited. I mean, you're thinking, man, this is the gig to have. You walk into the evidence room, and just give me a quick overview. What did you think when you first walked in?
Well, unfortunately, El Mirage was it was kind of in dire straits. They had everything thrown into Connex boxes. There was really no management of the system. It was a conundrum. It was a mess. And so it took me probably a good 3.5, 4 years to get it all cleaned up and processed and organized. And then from there, I started building off of it.
Did you look at that? I'm thinking when you walk into something like that, because I will say, for all the downfalls of the military, I'm sure it's I want to believe it's organized and very rigid. You don't have a lot of flexibility to come in and sort of put your own spin on things. It's probably, you're just doing a certain task. Did you look at this as a challenge? Like, you were excited? I assume you were excited about it. You're still there.
Oh, most definitely, yeah. And I love my job. I come in every day. I can't wait to come into work. You know, the 3 and 4 day weekends, I'm like, no, I'm ready to go back to work because I know what needs to be done, and I relish it. And it's a challenge every day.
So for the people that are out there, my assumption is we've got people on here that maybe even just recently walked into a mess. Maybe they opened up that door and saw the same thing you did, and maybe they want to use a word that's a little heavier than conundrum, but I like the word conundrum. I'm just curious, what were some of the first things you did? If you go back 12 years ago, what were some of the first things you did to begin to wrap your mind around what was going on, or how to even begin to start working on it?
I really had no idea what I was getting into, to be honest with you. I just started pulling what I had in inventory, laying it all out on the floor, trying to make heads or tails of it. I started to try to group things in similar items, like all the CDs, all the paperwork and documents, all the firearms, and I just started separating everything and putting it into, in my mind, a report number order from the newest. And then I was thinking, well, that shouldn't work. It should be, every single case should be together. And then as I learned, it didn't really matter where you stored it in the warehouse, so long as you could find it. And that's what I ended up starting to build off of. And I just mimicked some of the other agencies that I was researching and taking tours of their warehouses and going from there.
Right, right. Excellent. So I'm curious, what sort of software application, was there anything in play when you walked in? Was there pen and paper, or was it literally just here it is and figure it all out?
It was pen and paper, and then we started using the Spillman, and I was using that where I had to take the paper copies of the invoices, transfer that all into Spillman to get a barcode and put the barcode on it. And it was just something that they just started doing when I when I was hired on.
Excellent. Let's go over just real quick. I'm going to display on my screen, and hopefully, if you're not seeing my screen, Max, can you yell at me if we're not seeing my screen? Because I'm displaying. What I want to do is go through some statistics and some stats about El Mirage, basically the work that Jason's been doing. So this is our software application, and I'm showing this off just because this is how I get all the information. So as of right this minute, Jason has 22,208 items in his evidence room. They've disposed of 37,608. So that's a pretty strong disposition ratio. I don't know exactly what that is, but that looks like that's around 60%, somewhere, give or take a little bit, right in that ballpark. You have disposed of 50% of everything you've ever touched. So, that's a solid number. I assume you have right around 22,000 items in your evidence room. Does it feel like you have 22,000 items?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay. All right. So those are some statistics. The other thing I really like, and I showed that when I was talking to Jason yesterday about their setup, when you look at if you look at the last 12 months, this is how much evidence they've brought in and how much evidence they've disposed of. The green line being how much has come in, the blue line being disposed of. And for most departments, the stuff coming in the door is fairly static. And in your world, you're operating between 320 and say maybe 400 pieces of evidence in a given month. But I also noticed in March, you topped out at 800. What happened in March?
So we had several search warrants that took effect that day or that month, and we had an officer involved shooting. So between the search warrants and the sting operations that the detectives were doing, we recovered, I think just the one search warrant was close to 200 items, and it just skyrocketed. So my numbers went off the charts for that month. April was kind of same.
Yeah. So one of the things I found to be interesting, because you're not just the evidence tech. So now let's really wear people out. So not only are you responsible for 22,000 pieces of evidence and you run the evidence room, I mean, that's a significant amount of evidence. Tell me the other jobs you do for the El Mirage PD.
So as you said, I'm the only evidence tech for the El Mirage PD. I also assist detectives with search warrants. So I go out and photograph the scenes, document everything, collect and package. I also do the NIBIN entries. So any firearm that comes in and it's qualified, I go and test fire it, collect the shell casings, and enter it into the NIBIN database over at Phoenix PD. I do all the lab runs. Let's see, I do redactions. I pull all the 911 and radio recordings. I help do any type of city prosecutor and county attorney requests that come my way. And I'm the supply sergeant. So yeah, a little bit of everything.
First of all, you're crazy. I don't know how much money you're making, but I hope it's a lot of money. Can you even ballpark how many hours do you work in an average week?
About 50 hours on average is what it's coming out to. I also testify in court for DUI trials because I'm the QAS where I do the intox calibrations on the instruments that they use here.
So I just want to point out, I guess the point that I want to make, not only does he have 8 different titles with the El Mirage PD, and he works for the counties and everything else, but he's also managing to dispose of evidence. I mean, if you look at their disposition levels, there's a lot of people that would hear that. It'd be like, there is no way I would have time to do dispositions. And one of the things that I'm really impressed with is that over the last year, 7 out of the 12 months, they've disposed of more evidence than what they've brought in. I know Jason really well, and I'll back him up here a little bit on this and just say I know he works tremendously hard, but my assumption is you're very efficient at what you do also.
I couldn't have done it without this program, to be honest with you, because this is what saved me. It truly has cut down my time. Before the old system, I'd spend 5-6 hours doing it. Now, maybe less than 20 minutes. So it frees up my time to be able to do everything else on top of that and still manage the warehouse and do case management and, review of dispositions.
And I'm really putting you on the spot here, but you were using Spillman in RMS, so they have an evidence module. And the other day, I don't know if you saw it, but on the community page, I posted a question where I asked people, are you using a standalone evidence management system like our product, or QTEL, or Evidence on Q? Or I said, are you using RMS? I was sort of surprised to see that half the people respond, almost half, that they're using an RMS product. And so many people are forced to use an RMS system where that's just what I'm curious. Why was it you that wanted to get out of the evidence module of Spillman, or how did it even come along to move into a product like ours?
Oh yeah, most definitely. When I probably my third year in, I realized this is so redundant. Why am I taking what the officers have already entered and put in on a piece of paper? First it was handwritten, then I changed it over to where they can start typing in the form, because I couldn't read their handwriting to begin with.
Yeah.
After that, I would receive that Word doc, and then I would start typing it all in. I'm like, why am I doing this? I mean, they should be already entering it into the system, and all they got to do is just place a barcode. So I started doing research, and I found several companies, and I came across yours, and the way yours was set up, the ease and the ability for the officers to go through and process everything made sense. And I was able to sell it to the department and to the higher ups, and like I say, it's saved so many hours.
Yeah. And is that, I'm curious, because a lot of people, and I know people sometimes are just forced to stick with their RMS system, but I mean, I'm trying to think of the question I want to ask here. When you move into an evidence management application that is specifically designed for evidence management, what were maybe 2 or the 3 biggest things that really stood out to you that you simply were not getting in your RMS, or inefficiencies or whatever else? Is there something that really stood out?
Oh, the discrepancy reports right off the bat, the ease of doing the audits and inspections on myself, if you want to call it that, the ability, like you said, to just be able to see the screen, to see what's coming in and out without having to run like a crystal report. It's just I don't even know how to describe it, because it's just so easy. I mean, I could process 250 items in less than 2 hours. Once I get it all set up and ready to go, I just sit there and hand jam it in, and it's done.
Yeah. Excellent. So if I've got, and so Max, please. So Max is on here with me too, but he's not on the video. Max, we got any questions? I mean, I see things popping up, but I'm not able to keep an eye on. Is there any good questions coming in?
Yeah, and I think they were either already answered or they will be as we progress. But yeah, just 2 questions came in. The first one is, well, first had to do with, did Jason use an RMS for evidence before? That was the first question. And then the second one is, how do you dispose of evidence?
As in maybe, so I don't know, I was going to say, is that more of a process question, or, I guess, I'm sure what people are interested in is, what does your process of disposition look like? Do you have to, what do the approvals look like? How do you go about getting rid of evidence in your scenario?
So I do not dispose of anything until I get the A-OK from the case agent. So usually what will happen, I'll receive dispositions from records department, and then we'll go through and we do a workflow process through our RMS system. I'll send it in, and I do a little research saying, hey, there's items associated with this case. Here's the disposition. Can I get rid of it? They workflow it back saying it's good to go, and then that's where I process it from there. And then I, in turn, because back in the day, I would go 7 years back and start doing my own case management and review of all those cases, and that's how I was able to achieve some of these stats.
Yeah. I'm curious, were your stats always like this? Because again, when I look at, from my standpoint, if I walk into an evidence room, and I've said this before on these webinars, you can put a good evidence application in front of somebody, and they can jack it up in ways you would never imagine. Just because you got good evidence software doesn't equate to a good setup in your evidence room. I'm curious, did these statistics come along and look this strong because you got an evidence management system, or were you just struggling to keep up with it beforehand?
I think this was a part of it, and then I was able to, like I say, as I kept on progressing through the years, finding the solutions of what needed to be done to make it happen, to get the one in to one out. part of it was this system here, and then and getting on to the officers or getting on to the county attorneys and the city prosecutors for those dispositions to make it happen.
Do you have a good relationship with your prosecutors or whatever? Are they responsive to your requests for dispositions?
For the most part, yeah, it works out really well. I mean, we have one city prosecutor, so I can email him directly for any types of questions, and it works out real well. As far as the county attorneys, it's a little slow, but I'm still building that relationship, and I have access to their portal, so I can go in and I can check the status of those cases through the attorney's website, and then send those requests or copies of those dispositions to the case agent.
Let's walk through some pictures of your evidence room, because one of the things I asked Jason to do here a little bit ago. So Jason, are you seeing my screen right now?
I am, yes.
So let's just run through some. I'm going to leave these pictures broadly on the screen here. And first of all, my assumption is you didn't walk into that. Like, that's not what you saw on day one when you came in.
No, nothing of the sorts.
Yeah. Explain to us, I guess, where do you want to start with some of these pictures? I mean, I've got 6 pictures on the screen right there. Which one do you want to, you throw out some things.
Yeah, the top left hand is just an overall show of my warehouse. It's just the 6 shelving units. Someday I'd like to go to a high density shelving where they can collapse on each other. Mm-hmm. I do have room to grow, but I don't want to get to that point. So if need be, I have empty space there on the concrete where I can build another shelving unit. So I left that there.
So that's not 22,000 pieces of evidence. Where are all these 22,000 pieces of evidence? Well, I mean, so what is this right here we're looking at?
That's the 22,000. So those are my 3x5s or the 6x9 envelopes, I mean. So I have all my 6x9 envelopes there. And then on the other side of that shelving unit is my 10x13s. Everything that's in those boxes are the paper bags and clothing items and biohazard items and stuff like that. Kind of keep it neat and secured. So I try to keep it tight and keep it clean.
Excellent. Explain to me what these things are out back. I saw these in your pictures.
So that's I just acquired those because of those search warrants that I was having. I had everything inside the warehouse, which was, I couldn't even walk in my own warehouse. So when we do a couple grow homes, for recreational use, so to speak, and we take all their equipment, I store them in there. That's how the old warehouse used to be. It was just 2 Connex boxes and everything was thrown in there, and you had to dig through it and figure out how and where everything was at. Now I keep all my bicycles and I keep all the large equipment and tools and stuff in those.
Okay. So because you said it's 107 degrees today. I can't even begin to imagine what the temperature is in one of these boxes. So that's something obviously you're cognizant of. You're not putting DNA out in these things.
Oh, no, nothing like that of the sort.
Yeah. You know what? Sometimes you just gotta state the obvious. I do know that it was really a dumb statement, but there may be somebody that's like, whoa, wait a minute, what's he putting in those things out there? All right. And so I see you got all your bike storage. That's all outside also.
That was just newly acquired. So usually what I try to do is every year we get, they ask for a what if or a wish list. And so I say, okay, hey, it'd be kind of nice to be able to have this. And so they know how hard I work around here and what I've been able to do for them.
Yep.
And so it's been real nice that I have good support from my my supervisor, and I'm able to make this happen, with the exception of the weeds that are growing in front.
Hey, 11th job. You need to get on top of that. Come in on a Saturday and let's do some weed control and get the area looking good. You need something else to do.
I don't think my wife would appreciate that.
Probably not. So let's flip over to this right here. Is this all of your, looks like all your gun storage?
This is the firearm storage. Yeah, sorry, I was trying to get a better picture of that, but it's all behind a cage. And so I have a floor safe that's in there as well for all my currency, counterfeit currency, and jewelry and stuff like that. And then I have all my firearms. I think I'm at one time I had close to 1,000 firearms when I first started. Now I'm down to like 200, I believe.
Okay. And so you've got secure storage within your secure storage, because it looks like, I mean, obviously you're taking a picture through a cage. And so I'm just curious, how many people have access to your evidence room that don't have access to the firearms? Or, I mean, obviously your evidence room is secure to begin with. Why do you have this inside of, why do you have security inside of security?
It's just standard operations that they wanted to set up, and that's how we found through other agencies. So it's a security within the security. You have to have key access to get into it. And I'm the only one that has access to the warehouse.
Okay. I got it. So, so your guns, drugs, and money are all locked down within the evidence room, you know, just outside of the evidence room control.
Correct.
Yeah. I'm curious, just being in Arizona, do you have any problems with any sort of temperature issues? Do you run into anything specific that like you have something set up because you're in the environment that you're in?
No, everything's it's a controlled air conditioned warehouse. I try to keep it around 75, and it seems to be working out real well.
I see a question just popped in here. Somebody asked, do you destroy firearms or do you sell them? Or how do you go about getting rid of your firearms?
It used to be back in the day we could destroy, but Arizona changed their law to where we now have to sell, unless they're been obliterated or, you know, a serial number or altered in some form or fashion. Then we can destroy them. But everything gets sold through a public auction.
Of course, there's money at play, and I listen.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure we can get all sorts of feedback on that, because that is one of those things where it can vary greatly from state to state. I mean, there are some states that would not even think of auctioning these things off, and they just destroy everything, regardless of the value of the firearm or whether you think it's cool or not. They're just going to destroy it. What about your drugs? How do you guys go about getting rid of all your drugs?
Same scenario. I usually, once I get enough acquired, they get all boxed up, and we have a smelter that we take them to, and they all get destroyed with the drugs.
Well, when you said same scenario, I was thinking, are you auctioning your drugs off also?
No, I mean, as far as the firearms. Correct.
Okay.
Sorry.
Hey, that's all right. I was going to say people were going to line up. I didn't know how they did it in Arizona. Maybe you guys auction off the pot, you know.
They're trying to legalize it here, so we'll see.
Yep. Everybody is. That'll be another whole thing. So, all right. Well, let's go back. Let me see. So that's your firearms. Let's anything special about all your freezer storage and anything you want to throw out there specifically?
That's pretty much all my blood draw kits from the DUI cases, and then anything that needed to be frozen at the time. Most everything now, there's been a lot of feedback on it, and I'm still trying to research it. Some agencies, they freeze everything, but you know, from what I've read and researched and other agencies have talked about, so long as it's dried and it's in a controlled environment, it doesn't need to be frozen. So it's still debatable, I guess.
Yeah. Hey, just a total random question here. Have you ever undergone an audit? Have you ever had a third-party agency of any sort come in and audit all of the things that you're doing?
Several, yes. Phoenix PD, DPS has all come out, and they've done their own internal audits and inspections to see what needs to be improved and or modified and whatnot. So yes. And then I've had other agencies come in and they do not so much an audit inspection, but they take a tour of the facility and see what can be done on their end and vice versa.
I want to go back to something you just said a moment ago. You said Phoenix PD came in and did an audit. What does that mean? Like that? I don't know that I've heard of a situation where another PD came in and audited somebody. Give me a breakdown on that.
We had a new chief come in, and so that chief required or asked an external agency to come out to do the inspection, and thankfully I passed. So it was good with flying colors. And then same again, we had an interim chief, and he wanted to know the standings of the warehouse and the status and where it stood, whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. And so he too had external agency, DPS, come out and they did an audit inspection on me as well.
Wow. And listen, those things are very valuable. I was going to say a lot of people, really don't want those things, and they like to try to avoid them because they're worried about what people are going to find out. I mean, I would hope you welcome those things. I mean, was it?
I did, but I was a nervous wreck.
I didn't say you couldn't be nervous. I just said, those are good. Those are good things. You want to know what you're doing, and is it up, is it up to par, and are there things that need to be fixed? Because listen, I could tell when I look at the pictures. First of all, when I look at your statistics and when I look at the pictures, it looks like a really solid operation. But until you start digging down into some of the things that are lying underneath of it, you don't know if you're doing things the right way and what you can do to improve upon those.
Exactly, because you do find yourself in a rut, especially with myself, since I'm the only one that's doing it back here. I question myself sometimes. Am I really doing the right thing? Is there other processes that I could be doing to make it a little bit easier, or different storage techniques? So I like to have the network. I reach out to other agencies to see how they're doing it. And that's why, like I say, I was the president of the association for Arizona for a couple of years. And it was a great networking tool. I haven't been a part of that association this past year because I've been going to school full time. But now that I'm finishing up and getting ready to graduate, I plan on getting back into the swing of things and checking it out and see what's going on.
So you've got 11 jobs with the PD. You're back at school full time. I heard you have a wife. You've probably got 7 kids running around somewhere, don't you?
No, just 2 dogs.
Okay, that's how you have some of that time then. Okay, so listen, just a side bit of advice. Go ahead and get some kids. That'll really take care of all of that. Okay, we don't have to dig into that topic right there. I'm sure there's a lot of people that will agree with me on that. One question that did just come in, are you, your facility, are you inside the PD or are you at an off-site location somewhere?
My warehouse, I have the largest office out of the entire police department. So yeah, I am inside the warehouse, or inside the PD itself.
All right. Because somebody had asked about, security or armed personnel around, and I mean, you have that. You're feet away from police officers.
Correct. Yeah, and then we have those. I won't say the other term, but we have one of those panic buttons. There it is. And okay. So I have those panic buttons that I can, if need be.
Hey, you got a compliment on here. Somebody just said your room is awesome. So I just want to pass along the compliment.
I try real hard. I really do.
And I know that to be true. So I saw you sweating it out when you were trying to get onto the webinar today, but you did a fantastic job. So to move into something else, how do you handle your public return somebody's asking? Do you have like a window somewhere around there, or how do you meet with public to return stuff?
I do. I have my own little public lobby area, and it's a pass-through box with for small items, and then I have a larger box that I can put items into, like backpacks and whatnot. Excuse me. And so and then they sign on the digital pad showing that the item's being released to them. And then I have another separate room that's where I can put like larger items, bicycles and TVs, and then I can buzz them in. They can pick it up and carry it on out.
Yeah. So you just said something there when you talk about digital signatures. One of the things when you and I were talking on the phone yesterday, I had no idea you were using our mobile app. We came out with that a while ago, but my understanding is within the last month, you just started using our mobile application. Is that correct?
It is, and I absolutely love it. It's fantastic.
And you're doing, I mean, I even had you do an inventory today on it. So I asked just to prepare for the phone call today. Let me flip into here. I'm going to go in, and I really hope you don't mind me showing some of this stuff off because I asked you to do it today. But I'm just curious, right off the top of my head, it looks like earlier today you did 3 different inventories. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, and you can see the time date stamp, 11:39, 11:41, and 11:43. So all within, 10 minutes.
So that was going to be actually the question I was leading to. So you did 3 inventory, 3 different locations that equaled about almost 60 items. In fact, it looks like exactly 60 items. And you found one discrepancy, and you did that all within a matter of minutes.
Correct. Yeah, and if you click on that report, you'll see my notes for that discrepancy and why it didn't take.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it was just an old barcode and it wouldn't read. So I ended up fixing it, going in, printing a new barcode. Because at the time, you can see it was a 2015 case. And that's when I think we started to join with Tracker Products. And I had an old barcode and it just wouldn't scan.
Yep. Now, I do want to point out for everybody's, not only is Jason working at what sounds like 10 jobs for the El Mirage PD, and he's also disposing of evidence at a very good rate, but he's also doing inventories all the time. I mean, here's some of the history on his system in here where he's going in and doing inventory. So when I look at these things, there are some indicators I'm always looking for. What do disposition rates look like? Are you doing inventories? Are you keeping up with all of this stuff? What does your disposition rate look like? And these things all, outside of just seeing really clean pictures, and I mean, you do have some immaculate pictures of your evidence room, from everything that I can see, plus the auditing is going on, this situation is less susceptible to major problems than when you start seeing all these indicators being way out of line. So what would you say? I'm curious. What would you say to somebody that looks at all of this? What is it about your setup, or what is it about you that allows you to pull this off like you do? Because some people are looking at this and they're like, there is no way I'm managing 22,000 pieces of evidence, going out to the crime scene, going to court, doing dispositions. How do you pull all this off?
Just time management. And honestly, I don't know how I do it sometimes. There's days where I feel like I'm so far behind, I can never catch up. But being a small agency, I don't have the foot traffic of people coming in, claiming property. Everything's done by appointment base. I guess I'm real fortunate. I just really hammer down on it each and every morning when I come in. And I lay it all out, and I just have it in my mind what needs to be done for that particular day, that particular week. The Google Calendar really helps me out a lot to keep me on track. And so, it's just a process that I built up and slowly worked into it. And I'm so accustomed to it. That's my daily life now.
Are you an organized person by birth, or did you learn that in the military? Because listen, a lot of this stuff, to me, one of the fundamental criteria of somebody that pulls this off is they're highly organized. Not just organized, I'm talking highly organized. Where'd you pick that up at?
I think it's a mental status. I don't know. I have no idea where it came from, but if I can't find it within 2 to 5 minutes, I feel stressed. So, I just take pride in what I try to do, and I want to make sure I know the past history of El Mirage. I don't want it to happen again, so I want to make the chief look good, and that's my goal. I want my supervisor to trust me and understand what I do, to make sure that it's being done correctly. And like I say, I just love what I do. It's an awesome job. I'm by myself, so yeah, it's good.
Okay. And I just had a question escape my mind. So let me go on to one that I see somebody posted on here. Somebody said, I know the question I was going to ask. You're in the Facebook community group, right?
I am, yes.
All right. So anybody, listen, I'm asking questions here, but if you want to message Jason, it's Jason Michael. He's in the community group. You can post stuff on there, ask him questions about how he's doing stuff. This conversation that's going to end in probably 10 minutes does not have to be the end of it. If you want to know what he's doing, he'll respond to you inside the community group. So post stuff in there and ask away.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I love it because I love to network and to see how other agencies do it. The very first webinar that she had something on there I didn't even think about as far as the tagging system. And I'm behind on that tagging system, so I'm trying to relearn how to do that because I'm finding the way she did it would really benefit the way it helped me in sorting stolen items for destruction.
Yeah.
So I have to go back and look at that one again.
Yeah. So what he's talking about right there, if you're new to these webinars, again, as I said earlier, this is our 11th webinar we've done. And one of the very first one was a virtual evidence room tour of the Des Moines PD in Des Moines, Iowa. And again, another super organized person, Krista Morton. And I didn't even intend to show it off, but there was a part of when I was showing her system off that it was something that you grabbed onto, and now you're running with it, which is, listen, that's why we want to do these things. You never know when you're going to see something that somebody else is doing, and you're going to be like, oh, wait a minute, I didn't even know that. And then you implement that and make what you're doing better. Okay. I'm curious. So this is a really wide-ranging question. Is there anything you would want to throw out to somebody? If there's something you've learned over 12 years, maybe even a couple of things you would say, these have been critical to my success. Do you have anything like that?
Just networking, you know, reaching out to my first 2 years. That's all I did. I went to the largest agencies, and then I went to some of the smaller agencies. I picked and choose what would work best for us here at El Mirage. It seems to have worked here. So I really hammered down on getting my foot out there, or getting out there and looking to see what other agencies had to offer, and just trying to mimic some of what the best practices were.
Excellent. Very good. Here's a totally random question, but I'll throw it out nonetheless. How do you store your cell phones, and do you keep a charge on them when they're in the property room? Do you store cell phones?
I do, but they're not charged. Most of the time the batteries are taken out. They're in plastic or paper bags, 6x9 paper bags. Some of them are in Faraday bags for the higher profile cases. Yeah. But that's about it, really. And I'm trying to think. We just had a thing on that too, where we place them in airplane mode. They go to the lab to be downloaded and extract the data and whatnot, and then they can come back. Once that's done, then we turn them completely off.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to do some rapid fire stuff now. There's a whole litany of questions that are rolling in now, so we're just going to rapid fire these, just quick answers on these. The first one is, somebody said your room looks great. They can see your military attention to detail in it. So again, we're going to go with another compliment on that. Tell us the size of your department. How many officers does El Mirage have?
Currently we have 45 sworn officers, so it's a small department.
Okay. That's still a lot of evidence. I mean, these numbers, that feels a little heavy for a department of your size, but that's just, who knows. You mentioned earlier workflow toward disposals. Is that, well, okay, so the question is, are you using the tracker system for workflow, or what are you using for the workflow that's involved in your disposition process?
It's through our RMS system, through Spillman. Everything's done through Spillman, unfortunately. And not through tracker.
Yeah, and that's something I actually brought that up to Jason when I was talking to him the other day, because the one feature in our system that we're always looking to see if somebody is turned on is that auto dispo. And so my guess is you just found it works in the other system, and your disposition levels look great. So I would never tell somebody, if you're doing well at disposition, stop doing that and move to somebody else. I mean, you're keeping up with it, and so I would have no complaints about that at all.
So far, it's been working out okay. I mean, it would be nice if it was all in one, but it's working, and like I say, you don't want to mess it up too much.
Yeah. How about and so somebody's throwing in here I'm assuming your temporary lockers. Your officers bring in all their evidence, they enter it into the software, our system, the safe system. They barcode it, put it into the evidence lockers, and then from there you grab them every day and move them to where they go, right?
Easy enough. Yep.
Yep. Just curious, your temporary lockers, are they just like slam lockers, or are they electronic in any way?
Yeah, they're just slam lockers. Once you close them, you just lock them, and then they lock, and then it's a pass-through, simple pass-through lockers.
Yep. Okay. All right, everybody, we're winding up here. So if you have any last minute questions, now's the time to throw it out there. And I want to look back at your pictures. Is there anything else you wanted to throw out in all the pictures that we had?
No, I mean, that signature pad is fantastic. You don't want to see that one, but
We'll go back.
This has been a real lifesaver too, because before I would just show the item going out and go into like DPS lab or whatnot. Now I take the cell phone with me, scan the items when I'm there, and then I have somebody actually physically sign it, showing that they're receiving the chain of custody. And it just makes it look a little nicer on that chain of custody report.
Yep.
Same way with the officers issuing out items to them for review or whatnot, and I have them sign using that application.
I'm curious, have you gotten into taking a picture of anything yet when you're doing a transaction on the phone and attaching that to it? Like if you're returning a bike, do you take a picture of the person with the bike, or have you scanned a driver's license or anything and taken a picture of it?
I scan driver's licenses and attach it as a file into the system, but I've never really thought about taking an actual photograph of it. I noticed it's on there to be able to do that, so I might play around with it.
I didn't know if you had done it or not, if you could give us any feedback on that, because that is something that's available on the app. So no problem at all. So, all right. Well, Jason, I'm not seeing any other questions come in. And so is there any last minute things you want to throw out for us? Listen, you got a great setup. I really, really appreciate you doing this. I mean, you look super organized. And so any last minute things you want to throw out to us?
I appreciate the time, and thanks for having me on. It was a little rough and go there at the very beginning trying to get it all set up, but I'd be more than happy to take any other questions. Like I say, I'm on that Facebook webinar thing or through Facebook, and I enjoy it. Hang in there.
All right. Well, you did a fantastic job, man. I really enjoy your 107-degree heat when you go out. Again, I can't thank you enough for being here. If there's anybody else that would be willing to do something like this, please let us know. We want to get out there and show off what people are doing, and just certainly let us know. So, Jason, again, thanks for your time, and everybody have a great day.
Take care. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.